Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before we start, I just want to check with you if everybody can hear me. If you don't mind typing in the chat box on your lower left of your screen, just to confirm that you are listening, you are hearing my voice. Okay, so we've got one. Okay, very good. Excellent. What about the other people? Okay, so I'm going to type. I'm going to just to get everybody to confirm. Okay. I only got 3 confirmations. All right, well, I'm going to assume that everybody, okay, we got one person who cannot hear me. Okay, try it. Can you maybe restart or do a refresh on your screen there? Okay. Okay. All right. Hopefully the gentleman who's unable to hear me will hear me soon. We're going to go ahead and start. So good morning one more time, and thank you for joining us in this Meirc's webinar. As you see from the title, it's called The Heart and Soul of Human Resources. Let's go back to the basics. And actually, I decided to put together this webinar because of the experience that I've had personally in various companies that I work for, as well as the participants we've had in our courses. And I decided to share with you something that I've noticed, and it needs to be taken care of. The webinar, as it says, let's go back to the basics, is going to surprise you, hopefully, with a few ideas or a couple of ideas about the importance of some of the basic things that we need to do in human resources to ensure that we do a good job. To start with, I'd like to give you a bit of background about who I am. Well, you gathered by now, my name is Ibrahim Al-Yafi. I am a senior consultant specializing in human resources, working with Meirc Training and Consulting, and I've been with Meirc now for the last 5 years approximately. Now, education-wise, I did study in the United States of America, and I've done a bachelor's degree in engineering management, and I followed that by an MBA degree. Having returned back to the Middle East, I started my work, actually I started in the United States in the field of aviation, and then moved to human resources once I joined the corporate world. And I've racked basically 24 years of experience in human resources, and I've been very lucky to have in 7 different countries around the world. Now with Meirc, as I told you, my specialty is human resources and training, but usually it comes with a package. Once you work in human resources, as many of you probably are realizing, you end up having to develop your leadership skills, your cultural change abilities, your self-development and interpersonal skills, including communication skills. So it comes with a package, and so those are the other areas that I help in. But of course, my area of expertise or focus remains to be human resources. Well, talking about human resources, let's ask the question, so what is human resources? This is one of the definitions, of course, of human resources, which is the inventory. And I underline the word inventory here because it's very, very important in our discussion as we go along in this webinar. The inventory of competencies, in other words, the combination of the knowledge, skills, and attitudes of people who are working in our organization, and hopefully that will make them potential contributors to the creation and realization, of course, of the organization's mission, vision, and goals. So what is our role? I mean, if the human resources is the inventory of these competencies, what is our roles, or what are our roles as human resources professionals? Well, we are basically the liaison, the link, of course, between management and our colleagues, the employees, to ensure that we do achieve that particular goal. One thing I actually wanted to say at the beginning, and I forgot to mention that to you. Should you have any comments or any points that you'd like to mention, please go ahead and type them in there, and I'll try to pick up on them while I'm doing the webinar. Otherwise, we will basically end about 30 minutes at around 11:30 Dubai time, of course. We will address, and we have a question and answer session towards the end, addressing all of your concerns and all of your comments and questions. All right, I want to start with you, ladies and gentlemen, with a little quiz, a trivia quiz. So here we go. I'm going to swap now to the trivia quiz, and I have a question to ask you. Now, the term human resources is a very well-known term. My question to you is this: when was this term created? Is it back in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, or is it in the beginning or the first decade of this millennium? If you don't mind voting now. Okay, very good. Okay, we've got 4 votes, about 30% of the people. Good, good. I'm going to give you about 20 more seconds. Just choose any one of the answers. It doesn't matter if you know it or not. We're just doing a quick test because we're going to talk about this in a minute. Okay, nobody else wants to vote? That's it? All right. Would you mind, I think Adisha, I believe, if you don't mind voting, I don't know if you had a chance to vote, so go ahead and vote on the question there. Okay, okay, very good. All right, I'm gonna end the vote now. And here we go. All right, so 30% of you think that that's actually created in the 1980s. About 7% of the voters, of course, said 1970, and about another 7% said the 1990s. And to be honest with you, the right answer is actually the 1990s. It is not that old of a term. And I'll tell you what happened. Why did it come in the 1980s? 1990s, excuse me. Unfortunately, back in the 1980s, we had this wonderful name, if you recall, of personnel administration. Even though we still use that term, that's the name that we had back in the 80s, along with the employee relations. But in the 1990s, an interesting thing that happened in the business world, and that's the introduction of computers. Up to the 1990s, people still used typewriters, they still used faxes, no emails, nothing. Up to the 1990s, people did not even have word processors and Excel sheets and all that wonderful stuff that we use today and we take for granted. Now, the beautiful thing about the computers entering this part of the world, or entering the business world, that it had a huge impact and a beautiful impact on managing the data, which includes, of course, the employees' data and the employees' inventory that we used to keep on in hard copies, and it used to be very, very difficult to manage. So that's why we gained the name human resources, because now we can do things that we never were able to do before, thanks to the computer. We were just managing records. Now we went to recruitment, to compensation and benefits, to training and development, and so many, and management, all of the other wonderful solutions that we have. We've never been able to do that before, thanks to the computers. So going back to human resources and the definition of human resources, the way I like to think about the human resources function within the organization is like a building structure. Now, a building structure has to have a foundation in order for it to be solid, to be powerful, to stand against the wind. It has to have that solid foundation. Or I refer to that sometimes as the soul, if you will, of the human resources function. But of course, at a building without energy flowing through it, what good is it? Nobody can actually live in that building. So we need energy as well, and it's very much like the heart in the human body that pumps blood throughout the entire physical body. So we're going to talk today about what is that foundation and how strong it should be. And of course, we're going to talk about the source of the energy that powers, if you will, the human resources function. So guess what? I'm going to take you yet to another pole. So I'm going to ask you this question. So what do you think is the foundation or the soul of the human resources function? I've given you three options: policies and procedures, employee data, and organizational charts. So can you go ahead and vote on that as well? All right. Very good. 50% of the people approximately have voted. Okay, a few more seconds to allow the rest to make a decision. That's it? Nobody else wants to vote? All right, we got one more vote. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end the vote as well so we don't take a lot of time. And here we go. I'm going to share the results with you. Okay. And I'm having a hard time sharing the results. Let's see. There, now you got it. All right, good for you. 42% said employee data, and you are absolutely correct. I cannot overemphasize the importance of employee data, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's go back to our presentation. Here's my question to you. Can we do anything without employee data? Frankly speaking, I don't think we can do anything without employee data. Everything that we do is build on that information. Can you imagine your department without the ability to look at employee data, manipulate employee data, generate reports on employee data? Basically, I think the top management will say, thank you very much, but we don't need you anymore. So it shows you that without employee data, there's nothing, absolutely nothing that we can do. And this is where it becomes absolutely important for us to look at the employee data that we've got in our systems. I don't know if some of you have any background in IT systems, but they have a principle in IT and they call it garbage in, garbage out. And what basically that means is, as it shows there in point number 1, IT systems, as smart as they are actually very dumb. If you don't put the right information in, you don't get the right information out. So you put garbage in, you put lousy information in or lousy data in, and guess what? The outcome from that is definitely lousy. In other words, in our case, so what is the information that we put in? It's the employee data. Should the employee data be inaccurate, incomplete, or not up to date, and our management then suddenly requests us to give them reports about what's happening with our employees, and what kind of reports are we going to get? Not too good. And that our management is not going to be very happy. They're going to be quite disgruntled. And did that happen more than once? Did I see it to happen more than once? I cannot begin to tell you how many times did this happen. I always ask the question, can you imagine if you had a meeting with the top CEO of the organization, who would be sitting right next to that CEO? And usually the answer is the finance guy, whether it's a director or CEO or CFO. And I usually ask the question, where is the HR director? One of the funny responses once I got is the HR director is sitting at the end of the table just flipping the charts or the slides of the PowerPoint presentation. And why is that? Well, because we've never really earned the trust of top management, because unfortunately we do a lot of work and there's a lot going on in our lives. But when it comes to accuracy, to correct information, there's nothing that, I don't want to say there's nothing. I want to say there's always been trouble, and we've always lacked that trust from management. So what is it that we need to do? Why am I talking about this? Yeah. Well, I want to show you that the strategic role of human resources is basically using that employee data so we can provide analysis about the employees, we can provide reports about their information, what's going on with those people, along with recommendations of whatever going on with these employees. We are the voice of the employees. We need to talk the language of the management, which is the language of numbers. And that is usually coming from the data that we've got about our employees. If we do not have a good quality information and recommendation and analysis provided to our management, you know what, we're not playing a strategic role. We really don't deserve the name human resources. We deserve the name personnel administration that we earned back in the 70s. So what am I proposing today? I'm proposing, ladies and gentlemen, a cleaning revolution. I would like our data of our employees to be absolutely correct, to be absolutely up to date, to be absolutely accurate. I don't want to hear about employees who left the company and still being paid salaries, or employees who've been with the company for 4 or 5 months and not being paid salaries because their data has not been entered correctly into the system. We got to be more proactive about that particular foundation of the human resources. And there are 2 recommendations that I have for you. Number 1, the HR staff who are responsible for the data entry have to be trained on 2 main points. Number 1, the accuracy of the data entry, right? I want them to become like financial people, accounting people. You know how the accounting people worry about every cent, every fils, every halala, about money going in, going out. That's how I want the HR data entry people to do. We would like them to be absolutely accurate in putting that data. The other thing that they need to, of course, to do is to be absolutely wonderful and experienced in using the human resources management system that we have in our companies. If you don't know how to use the system properly, well, guess what? The data that's going to be entered may not be saved, may not be updated correctly, may be put in the wrong record, and we don't know about that. So ensure that the people who are in charge of the system are actually well trained on the system. The other thing that needs to happen, which rarely unfortunately happens, is those periodical data audit of the data on the system against the hard records that you have in your files. Do that every once in a year, or create a system of some sort to have an ongoing sort of a check between the data that's on the hard record and the data that is on your system. Remember, if the data does not match, there are chances of employees not getting paid on time or not getting paid the right amount. And if that sort of information leaks to your labor department or your Ministry of Labor or the courts, that's the last thing that your management wants to deal with because of a simple mistake of not entering the data correctly. If you want to take a strict role in human resources, provide reports, make human resources a much more interesting function than just pushing paperwork and just just receiving orders and responding to customer demands. We need to actually be very powerful tools at our hands and producing the information and the insights that our management requires to help them achieve the organization goals that they want. All right, so that's the bit about the foundation, if you will, of human resources, the soul of human resources. So let's take another poll. Now we want to talk about, well, the heart. So the question is asked one more time. What do you think is the energy source or the heart that pumps blood into the human resources function? The 3 options are there in front of you: policies and procedures, human resources management system, and the job description. Very good. Okay. We have 30%, 40, 50%. Brilliant. Any more voters? Oh, very good. Interesting that people are a lot more interested in answering this particular question, but I like it. All right. Anybody interested to vote? Anybody else? All right. 5 more seconds. All right. I'm going to end the vote. All right. Let's show the details. And again, do you have it now? Very good. Excellent. Excellent. Notice that the majority of you, I think 31%, said they think the HRMS is the energy source. Some of you, I think 80%, said policies and procedures, and the least percentage came on job description. Oh boy. Surprise, surprise, those who voted job description, well done, you got it right. It is actually the job description that I consider to be the energy source or the heart of human resources. Well, why do you say that? It is the most basic document. You don't have a job. Think about it. If you don't have job descriptions, again, the question goes, what can you do? Well, nothing much, to be honest with you. You want to have a healthy human resources department. You have to have a healthy heart, and a healthy heart means you have to have a good quality job description in place. Let's look at the importance of job descriptions. I've got a number of questions for you to prove the importance of a job description. Can you recruit without a job description? I'll guess the answer is no, because if you don't know what kind of a person you need to hire, how can you possibly fill that position unless you do it based on personal feelings? Can you train anybody without a job description? Again, the answer, no way, because the job description does provide the sort of minimum requirements for the job. It does provide you with the competencies, if you have competency-based job descriptions, or at least skills required for that particular job. And even if that is not mentioned in your job descriptions, you can at least do the job analysis based on the duties and responsibilities of the job description and decide what sort of training courses are required for that particular job. Granted, when you do the training requirements, obviously you need to sort of compare the level of the employee versus the level required for the job. So you need to do two comparisons, but the standard about what the job requires is definitely available in the job description. Question number 3, can you manage employee performance without a job description? Again, it provides that standard that I can compare the performance, the expectations, if you will, of what that employee is supposed to do as opposed to what the company requires that employee to be performing. And finally, and most importantly, both to the company, I guess, as well as the employees, being paid fairly. How do we decide what sort of a salary do we offer a particular position? And usually we follow a procedure called job evaluation. Well, job evaluation cannot happen without proper job analysis and the proper job description in place. So there's nothing, any solution that we provide, all of these wonderful ideas that we come up with and solutions that we give to our customers, our managers, are based on that most basic document, the job description. I hope I made my case to you about the importance of the job description. I want to continue on. From the point of view of the employee, well, the employees usually ask, and a lot of their complaints come to us in human resources, that what am I supposed to do? What are the expectations? A lot of people can be like, I was dumped in the job, I don't know what am I to do, there's no guide that I can refer to. Well, that's the beauty of the job description. If you have a proper and up-to-date job description, it provides that guidance to employees about what to perform and how to do their jobs properly. The other service that the job description provide is to the managers themselves. I mean, managers usually have a number of people. Yes, they know their department very well. They know what the work's supposed to do. But a lot of the times they mix and match, and they're going to expect everybody sometimes to do everything, which is completely unfair. So in order to create some sort of limits, some sort of borders between the various jobs and not have the overlapping, if you will, of many people doing the same thing. That's the beauty of the job description. It provides that guide to managers so they can manage the performance of their employees and what they're supposed to do accurately and fairly. Now, the other important point of view about job descriptions from the point of view of the organization, the job description is viewed as a legal document. The relationship between the employee and the organization is usually defined using the contract, but the contract defines more or less the working relationship. You know, what sort of money do I pay? How many hours do I work? What benefits do I get? So on and so forth. But what kind of a job, except for the title, it's not mentioned usually in the employment contract. So where would I find that information? I would find that information definitely in the job description. So it serves, as I told you, as a legal document. We've seen cases that go to court due to complaints by employees that this particular duty was assigned to me by the organization or by my manager, and it's not right, it's causing me grief, it's causing me problems, so on and so forth. And if it reaches a court case, guess what document the law, the judge will actually refer to in making his or her final decision? It is the job description. So it's definitely the heart of the human resource function. So what am I proposing here again? Guess what? It's another cleaning revolution, ladies and gentlemen. I would like us to go back in and clean up that heart of the human resource function. I don't want to hear about any heart attacks. I don't want to hear about any strokes. I'd love to see a healthy, pumping, powerful heart of the job of the human resources function. So how do we do this particular cleaning? Number one, the basic question: do you have job descriptions in place? If the answer is no, that is your priority number one. You got to go out there, you got to start a project to create job descriptions. Now, make sure those job descriptions actually are written in a manner that reflects reality of the job. One of the common mistakes about writing job descriptions is we write them as they should be versus as what is actually happening. Particularly those positions that already exist and they've been going on for a number of years, but they've never had a job description written. You go and conduct an interview with either the manager or the employee, and you ask them, well, tell me about your job, and they give you what's supposed to happen. And a lot of the times we check with them and ask them, is that what you actually do? No, what I actually do is A, B, C, D. Well, why did you tell me that? Because that's the way it should happen. And when you want to document it, you need to write it in the way it should happen. No, that's what should go in the policy and the procedure sometimes. But what needs to go in the job description needs to reflect reality. If you do have job descriptions in place, ask yourself the question, when was the last time they were updated? When was the last time they were reviewed? Ideally speaking, you would want those reviewed on a regular basis. The best scenario of when you can review them should happen during the annual performance appraisals between the manager and the employee. One of the questions or one of the points that should be covered by the manager with the employee is whether the job description still reflects the duties and responsibilities of the employee. As you well know, and for your own personal jobs, duties differ due to the restructuring of the organization, and new products, and new strategy. So jobs develop; they are not static. And the document that describes that job should be updated and should be just as dynamic to reflect reality. So make it, if you do have good performance appraisal process in your organization, try to educate your managers to make it part of what they do. But I do realize managers are not necessarily always very favorable of doing this. They're going to complain and whine and tell you, it's hard enough to do the performance appraisals. Now you want me to do the job description review for you. Fine. If that's an option that you cannot really convince your managers to do, let's go for option number 2, where you take the responsibility of initiating a project to review and update the job descriptions. Having said that, of course, managers and employees will have to be involved in this, but at least when you do it separately, you lessen the burden from the performance appraisal process. So how often should you do this? Recommended every 2 years. Because by the 3rd year, I can guarantee that about 10 to 15% of the job may have changed by the 3rd year. So ideally speaking, you would want the update to happen once every 2 years. So when I do the update, can anybody just do the update? No, not everybody. Somebody who is actually trained needs to do the update. You'd need to train your HR staff on how to conduct job analysis and how to write proper job descriptions in whatever language that you use in your organization. Some of you may use the English language, some of you may use the Arabic language, but in either way, people need to be trained how to do it. Usually, we collect the information about the jobs from the managers and the employees, but the scribes, the people who actually put it together, the people who should have the experience in turning that information into the formal way of writing job descriptions is our responsibility in human resources. And usually it's the compensation and benefits department if that exists. But if that department doesn't exist, so whoever responsible to do that has to be trained on how to conduct the proper job analysis and, of course, writing the proper job description. Well, and there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are, in my mind, the heart and soul of the human resource function. The most basic elements, if you will, of the human resource function to operate strategically, effectively, and play the partnership role that we are supposed to play. Cannot happen without the quality, the employee data that we should have in place, so we can manipulate that data and provide the reports, the analysis, and recommendation to our management, helping that management achieve the organizational objectives. And none of the solutions that we can offer, such as job evaluations, compensation and benefit systems, training, recruitment, none of those can happen without the proper heart, the proper documents in place that we can depend on, that provides us the standard for that particular job. I hope you found that information I know I'm not coming up with rocket science here, but like I said, the intention of this webinar is to take you back to the basics, to take you back and remind you of the thing that should happen automatically and not take that for granted. Thank you very much. I'd like to open now the session for any comments or any question and answers that, questions that you may have about this particular topic. Okay, we have one gentleman typing something. And he's changed his mind. All right, so what is the most suitable HRIS for a company that has about 100 staff only? It's a very, very good question. Thank you for that, Abdullah. To be honest with you, these systems that we have out there, the most popular ones in the Middle East or in the Gulf are either SAP, which is extremely expensive, followed by Oracle, obviously. And Oracle still, even though it's cheaper than SAP, it's still out there. It's still, I mean, it's like, you know, to compare it to cars, when you buy SAP, you're probably buying a Bentley or a Rolls Royce. While when you buy Oracle, even though you're not buying a Bentley, but you're still probably buying a Lexus or a Infinity, so it's still an expensive element. Having said that, there are many options out there in the market. I cannot really here to recommend any names, but what I would suggest to you, find out about the HRMS solutions that are available as purely human resources management systems out there. You don't necessarily have to go with Oracle, but the advice that I have for you, whatever system that you purchase, whatever system that you bring after you do your evaluation, make sure that it actually uses the same database language that is used by your finance department. Whatever system that's being used in the finance department, if it's Oracle based, if it's non-Oracle based, or you know, the other these technical options that you have out there that you may want to look at what's going on in your organization. They need to sort of consolidate the data between human resources, particularly the financial aspect. You know, I'm referring here to salaries and payroll, and the system that they've got there to make sure that they can do the proper financial reporting. So thank you for that. All right, another question here. Do you recommend to outsource job evaluation function? Very sensitive subject. To be honest with you, a lot of the times we at Meirc do get job evaluation requests, and we have actually turned down a large number of them. And the reason being, because there is no better person to evaluate the job than the people who actually know the company and know the jobs within the organization. Job evaluation, if you don't know, if you're not trained on the system, whatever system you use out there, there are a number of systems out there, including the one that we offer. If you're not trained on using it well, it might be a good idea to use an outsource. My personal preference is to actually train people within your organization, create a job evaluation committee from a number of your managers from different departments, and let those actually conduct the job evaluation. If you lack this, you don't have the commitment from the management, you don't have the commitment of the various people that you would like to be on the job evaluation committee, then use outsourcing for job evaluation. But it's always a problem when you use, in my opinion, or it's always a challenge to use an outside consultant, because no matter how good the outside consultant, he or she will never know the real story or what's happening inside. All right, the next question is, job description is definitely hard, but job evaluation is also very crucial. Definitely. But because if you don't do the job evaluation properly, you cannot pay employees properly. That is absolutely correct. But I go back and tell you, there's no way that you can do the job evaluation if you don't have the proper job description in place. In fact, in a number of projects that we took on job evaluation, and when we discovered the organization does not have a job description in place, we modified our approach, and our proposal to them is to write job descriptions first and then conduct the job evaluation. But you're absolutely correct. All right, next question for Mr. Majid. He says, how can I know that my people will succeed doing the job evaluation even though with some training? In human resources, unfortunately, we don't have black and white. It's never 1 + 1 = 2. It's just gray. You can, with the training, you can maximize your chances of getting accurate information, or as accurate as possible. But can you guarantee that you're going to be 100% accurate? The answer is unfortunately no. But if you can guarantee 70–80% accuracy, I say you've done a great job, and you've still done a much better job than a lot of organizations out there. All right, I go back to Mr. Ab. He says, you didn't include policies and procedures as critical as HR data and JD. I agree with you, but policies and procedures are essential. I don't know, maybe the good one. Surely, I mean, the policies and procedures are sort of the law, if you will. And I'm not undermining the importance of policies and procedures at all. I agree with you totally. I think they are very important. But if you give me an option between, the backbone is a very good, I think, analogy of policies and procedures. But if you give me a sort of if I take a department, an HR department that doesn't have anything, what would I start with? It's not the policies and procedures. I will actually make sure that I have data that, or a system in place that captures the data first correctly, that I have the job descriptions in place. Based on that, I'll be able to develop the policies and procedures. So it is the backbone 100%, because it basically defines sort of the moral code, the ethics, the rights and the duties of the employee versus the organization. I don't agree. I don't disagree with that at all. But it does come to me as a third priority, not a first or second priority. Not Mr. Abdullah, I think is typing something. Okay. It is. I mean, to be honest with you, while Abdullah writes his question or comment, human resources is definitely one organization or one thing that we do in the organization that goes underappreciated and unfortunately not very well recognized, the amount of work that we do. That's the other thing. I mean, I'd like to recommend as an added point to this webinar is sort of market what you do. go out there and communicate with the people. Get out of your offices, go meet with the managers, get a feel of what's happening with them, see what's, the priorities that they want. At the end of the day, they are our customers. I usually ask the question in my training courses, do we have customers in our organizations? And the answer is usually, of course. And I ask people, so who are our customers? Usually the answer is our employees. Then I tell them, well, like banks, do we have VIP customers? And the answer to that one, yes, we do. And those VIP customers are our managers. So try to build some relationship with your VIPs. All right, Abdullah managed to type his question. Agree with that they are concerned of missing some tasks due to lack of experience, maybe? Oh, definitely. But I think if I read that question correctly, I think this is because the capturing of the duties and the job requirements did not happen correctly from the beginning. When organizations start business, of course, at the beginning, they usually don't start with writing job descriptions, particularly if it's like a family business that starts with 2 or 3 people, and then the business grows, and after it gets a certain stage, they realize we need to create an HR department, we need to create a system to capture the data and have job descriptions in place, so on and so forth. So at that point in time, they just get anybody, or they do it internally. And yes, you're right, they don't capture the data correctly. A lot of other times, other organizations, if they are, for example, government, backed by government, or they are a new breed or a new born of an organization that already exists, they're going into a new business. So what they do is that they do a copy and paste of job descriptions from other organizations, which is fine at the beginning. But you cannot leave them as they are, because a year after operation, again, a new definition of the job description, or the various jobs and the various duties and the strategy of the organization will emerge, and as such, we need to capture those and ensure that they are reflected in the job descriptions. I see typing going back and forth. A couple of people, I think, they are typing. Here we go. Wow. Okay, we got 2 of them at the same time. Let me see if I capture the first one. Can we depend on job descriptions to develop competencies? Oh, absolutely. Yes, if the job descriptions actually are reflective of reality. So, but the type of competencies that you would develop based on the job descriptions are the third type, which is, and those are the functional competencies. Core competencies, or the organizational competencies, should be developed based on the organizational strategy. And then you've got the managerial competencies that usually, again, from the strategy plus the job descriptions of the managers. The functional competencies, absolutely, it depends on the job description and the proper job analysis of the job versus the job description. But like I told you, you cannot do this unless, of course, you are definite of the quality of the job descriptions. All right, next question. Okay, currently the modern literature, say that the latest trends in jobs is a complete employee doing almost everything. How can JDs deal with the latest trend? I see the multitasking employee, or the employee who is more responsible for a number of duties. Particularly, I think that is popular in the world of customer service, where jobs need to deal with the customer. So the customer comes in and he has something to complete. Like take for example, let's say you want to renew your driving license. You would go in and you would want to deal with a certain employee. You don't want to go from one employee to the other to complete your task. So yes, they bulk that in. But in reality, you are changing the job definition of that particular employee. So it needs to be captured. If this is the new strategy, this is the new direction, it needs to be captured. So now the duties of that person are completely different than the way they were before. And therefore, you scrap the old job description and create a brand new one that reflects the new duties. Next question, I go back to Majid. The job evaluation question. I'm beginning to think that Majid is about to do some job evaluation exercise in his company. What is the suggested team formulation for an organization of 900 employees? Is 1 or 2 HR specialists enough? What do you suggest? Yes, I mean, two people I think is fine, but you do need to have a job evaluation committee in there. And having a job evaluation committee means you have representations from the various departments. And usually the job evaluation committee consists of about 5 people or 6 people coming from different departments who will decide together the level of a particular job or the value of a particular job. Here, HR takes sort of a less important role. So they just manage this, they facilitate it, and they have a say, but they only have a vote out of the job evaluation committee. But if you have 2 dedicated full-time employees working on a job evaluation for 900 people, but when you say 900 people, the question is not really the number of people as much as the number of jobs that you have. Okay, but on average, I would think you would have about 150 jobs, 200 jobs. So 2 people would be fine. All right. Question of Muhammad. In a group of companies for similar position may have same JD. Oh, right. Yes. So that was your comment on the employee who does more than one responsibility. All right, I have a doubt there now. I believe competency mapping is a part of job evaluation, but an altogether different activity, not directly linked to job description. Please clarify. Well, be careful. Competency mapping has nothing to do with job evaluation. The job evaluation, depending on the system that you use, it takes the requirements for the job in giving a value for a particular job, so you can at a later stage decide sort of a pay for it. Competency mapping usually refers, as far as I know, to what sort of training or development steps that an employee needs to take in order for him to develop the competence required for his job. So it's sort of a gap analysis. So if I want to find out if a particular job has customer service as a competency, how will I develop an employee's competence in customer service? If you have a map for that, that will tell you for like level 1 of that competence, you need to attend course 1, course 2. Level 2, the same thing. It could be part of projects that the person has to do, so on and so forth. All right, that's it. One more question. Yes. I have a completely different topic to ask. Sure, interested to discuss more about employer branding. How can we have some webinar in line to it? Well, thank you for the suggestion. Actually, we can. What I'm going to do is either plan it myself or maybe have one of my colleagues talk about employer branding. In fact, one of my colleagues is very interested in the topic. So I'll take that suggestion and definitely I'll arrange for it. Thank you for that suggestion. Any more comments or questions? You're welcome. I think there's somebody else typing something here. Yeah. You are very welcome. The person who asked about the webinar on employer branding, is there a particular point that you'd like to ask about? Okay. All right then. Somebody is typing. Yes. Okay, things seem to have gone a little quiet. Abdullah, you have something to ask about. Please go ahead. I'll wait for you. There you go. Is there a chance to get a copy of it? The answer is yes, of course. Send us an email, and we will definitely send you the slides. Hopefully within a couple of weeks after today. So then, a couple of weeks we can send you the slides. No problem. Can I write to you later? It's a little, yes, of course. You can do that. I'll just type my email address in the chat box there for you, so you can capture it. Okay, did it show? Okay, very good. And by the way, it goes for all of you. Now you have my email address. Should you have any point that you'd like, my pleasure. Any point that you'd like to discuss, please don't hesitate. Send me an email, and I'll probably. I mean, it depends if I'm available or I'm not or I'm traveling. I may take a day or two to answer you, but I will definitely answer you. All right. Well, if nothing else, if there are no other questions that are coming, here we go. Do we have HR-related webinars every Thursday, as I believe we have another one? Yes, well, not necessarily, actually. It depends on the availability of the consultants. Usually, we in the beginning of the year, we decide sort of webinars that we would be doing. It just so happened that these two webinars happened one after the other. We kind of, on a regular basis, I think, have these webinars, but we have them in various topics, not necessarily just on human resources. So just keep checking our website, and you see what's going on. Okay, you are very welcome. Couple more points coming in. Okay, terrific, terrific. All right, any more questions, any more comments, ladies and gentlemen? All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you found the content of the material to be beneficial, and I hope those of you who would like to receive a copy of the presentation, do send us an email. And I certainly hope you found also the discussion about the topics were very good. I wish you all the best of luck. Please keep in touch and keep joining us in these webinars.
Meirc.com